Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the free hour. It's your boy Tree, your boy Trevor Turner. And today we got another great episode of the ABCs of Tree, the free hour ABCs. Thank you for joining us. Last week we talked about kindness. It was K. We talked about kindness. We talked about why it's important to have kindness for yourself, why it's important to have kindness for other people, how you cultivate it. And we talked about the difference between being kind and being nice. It was a great video. If you haven't watched it, make sure to go check it out. Today, though, we're going to be talking about something super important. Today, we are going to be talking about something that actually leads to a lot of the different behaviors and a lot of the different actions and a lot of the different stuff that we've been talking about so far, not only with the free hour, but with the free hour ABCs, with the workout videos, a lot of the different topics we've been covering. And in a lot of ways, these factors that we have been talking about actually add up to this. They add up to cultivating this in ourselves. We're talking about love. We're talking about the letter L. The letter L is going to stand for love. So we're going to talk about love for self. We're going to talk about what that means. We're going to talk about what that looks like. We're going to talk a little bit about why everything we've talked about actually builds to that, and why starting to do those things is a result of the beginning of self-love. We're going to talk about social connections. We're going to talk about why they are important. We're going to touch on that a little bit, but then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this thing, man. We're going to talk about love and relationships. We're going to talk about understanding love and connection. We can talk about building healthy relationships, navigating the challenges in relationships. We're going to be talking about boundaries in positive relationships, accountability in positive relationships, and navigating our feelings when it comes to relationship dynamics. All right, so let's jump in real quick. Let's start with self-love. Self-love is literally just a high regard for one's own well-being and happiness. So what that means is that we give ourselves a break from self-judgment. We trust ourselves. We're true to ourselves. We establish healthy habits. We talk to and about ourselves with love. And it's literally everything we've been talking about so far is a building block to this. But having the beginnings of self-love and having that high regard for our well-being, it leads us to starting to do everything that we've been talking about. And then doing everything we've been talking about actually builds and reinforces self-love. Affirmations, talking to ourselves in a positive way. Not talking to ourselves negatively or critically, talking to ourselves in a way that shows that we believe in our own capability, talking to ourselves in a way that shows that we believe in our own trajectory, talks to ourselves in a way that shows that we believe that we can get where we need to go, that is in line with our well-being and happiness. When we talk about beliefs, when we talk about choices, beliefs and choices in our mindset and the way we look at things and the way we act on things, it definitely builds to self-love, because what we've done is we're starting to establish healthy habits and we've started to be true to ourselves, giving ourselves a break from self-judgment. Then we talk about desire, we talk about decision making, we talk about following those dreams, we talk about goal setting, we talked about all of these different things that actually build to fully cultivating our self-love. Because self-love, like I said, is as simple as a high regard for your own well-being and happiness. So setting goals and achieving goals is one of the best ways to start actually cultivating well-being. Looking at ourselves in the mirror and giving ourselves positive affirmations is one of the best ways to start cultivating self-love. When we start to shift and change that negative self-talk, and start to shift and change our negative beliefs, and start to shift and change our negative self-criticisms, and we start to stop those thoughts and we start to stop those things, because we talked about what we have with joy is we take that step back and we start to look at our thoughts and we start to realize that we are not our thoughts, and we start to stop those thoughts, because we know that if we can observe them without judgment, we can realize that those things are not us and they do not come from us. And what we can do is we can actually change those things. We can change the things that our mind says about us. We can change the things that we think about ourselves, and we can change the way we talk to and about ourselves. And that is the core and the crux of self-love. And then also with self-love, it's a regard for your own happiness. So that means knowing what makes you happy, knowing what you are passionate about, knowing yourself. Self-love starts with knowledge of self. Because if you don't know what makes you happy, if you don't know what sparks your passion, if you don't know what ignites your creativity, then you haven't completed that first half of the battle, because you need to take that time for self-reflection. You need to take that time to look at yourself and tell yourself that, you know what, the things that make me feel fulfilled, the things that make me feel like I have a purpose are important. And I need to be able to do those things. I need to be able to cultivate those things. I need to be able to have those things in my life. And a lot of times the best way to do those things is you start thinking about not only yourself, but you think about who would benefit the most. And I got this from Eric Thomas. Who would benefit the most from you achieving and fulfilling your dreams? Because a lot of times, man, our dreams are not just for us. Our dreams and our purposes are not just for us. Even people who want to be rich and famous and entertain people, they want to entertain other people. So who would benefit from you becoming that famous comedian? Who would benefit the most from you becoming a famous singer? Everybody loving your music, being moved by your music, getting through times when they feel the most depressed they've ever felt, getting through breakups because of your music. Or when they need to laugh and being able to see your special on Netflix or Max or whatever app you're on, Hulu, whatever. Who would be most benefited by it? And you need to realize that because there are people who will be benefited by your purpose, that is when you can start to say it is important to be able to know my purpose. I don't just have to fit in the box. I don't have to be a cookie cutter person. I don't have to take my thoughts and clip it into that square. I can keep my thoughts the way they are, and I can keep myself the person I am, because I have a high regard for my well-being and happiness. And I have a high regard for who I am as a person. I have a high regard for my purpose, and I have a high regard for my creativity. I have a high regard for every gift that was put inside of me from the moment I was born. That's self-love. That's the core and the crux of it. And it's also giving ourselves a break from self-judgment and trusting ourselves. One of the things that I like to think about, I had somebody comment on one of the videos. He said, I love the fact that you went with this take. I love the fact that you didn't try to edit out your little, when you were tongue-tied or you tripped over words or whatever the case. Because I give myself a break from self-judgment. I trust myself and I be true to myself. I try not to replace the perfect with who I am, with the authentic. And that's what we need to do. We need to understand that we're not going to be someone else. We are going to be ourselves, and that's all we can be, and that's all we should be. That's all we should be. Okay? So now let's move on. We're going to briefly touch on social connections. We're going to briefly touch on healthy social connections. We're going to briefly touch on why those are important, because I think I'll do a longer video about that full topic later, but this does fall into love. So when we talk about healthy social connections, and we talk about why they're so important, there was a study done where they had a whole bunch of mice, and they put morphine in their water. And they got these mice or lab rats basically addicted to morphine, unfortunately. So what they did was they left them alone in their cage, and they were just given the choice between the morphine water or regular water. Now, when these rats were alone in their cages, and these rats were alone in their cages with no other rats around, and they had no activities to do, no little wheels to spin on, no places to hang out with the other rats or anything like that, they chose the morphine water at an alarmingly high percentage. It was like every time they went for the water, it was morphine water. They were sluggish. They were nodded off, basically. They were just chilling, sitting around, high as shit, right? They took these same rats, these addicted rats, and they put them back in the general population, so to speak, of the rats, of the lab rats. They put them back in the big cage, in the big environment, the utopia-like environment where there were so many other rats hanging around, female rats, male rats, so they could do what they do, but then other rats of the same sex so that they could congregate. There were activities for them to do. There were things that they could do that they could engage in rat-like social interactions or whatever the case. I didn't see a video of it, so I don't know what that looks like, but that's what the study says, right? And it come to find out that they would thought that these rats would still, because they were addicted, physically addicted, that they would still go after the morphine water at the same rate. They barely went after that morphine water. I'm talking about barely. And in some cases, they never went after the morphine water at all. They went after the regular water. And there was a TED talk that I saw, a guy, he's in recovery. God, I wish I'd remember his name. I tried to look it up. I could not find it. And he said that connection is actually the cure for addiction. Based upon that study, and also based upon the fact that healthy social connections is what helps people stay in recovery. It's one of the main purposes of things like Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous. It's one of the main purposes of things like Celebrate Recovery, because although there is an overarching goal that everybody is kind of reaching towards when it comes to the spiritual awakening, when it comes to their higher power and their relationship with God, it all starts with the fact that they are maintaining healthy social connections through it all. Because when people try to work the steps alone, when people try to work the Celebrate Recovery program alone, when people try to work their recovery alone and in isolation, it does not work. People need healthy social connections because connections are the glue that holds us together. They're the invisible threads that bind us. Studies have shown that strong social connection are actually linked to better physical and mental health, increased happiness, and even longevity. Connection, social connection, is an essential ingredient to life. So when we talk about healthy social relationships, we're going to really touch on this quickly. Our social connections, they serve as pillars of support and companionship. They shape our experiences and influence our journey towards personal growth and fulfillment. Social activities and connections have a profound impact on our mental and emotional well-being, with studies even demonstrating the correlation between social interaction and reduced drug use. It's essential for our overall happiness and fulfillment. So when we talk about healthy social connections, we talk about finding people that are on the same level and the same wavelength as us. We talk about people who are interested in the same things that we are, but then we also talk about people who look at us the same way or close to the way that we look at ourselves. We are not someone to be used for someone's fulfillment or their own gratification. Those are not healthy social relationships. It is give and take. It is okay to say no. But at the same time, if somebody never says yes to you, but then gets mad when you say no, that is not a healthy social relationship. Healthy social relationships fulfill you. They pour into you so that you have something to pour back into them. And it's about reciprocity. That's what healthy social interactions are all about. It is a mirror. Because a lot of times we look in the mirror and we say the positive things to ourselves. A lot of times we get in the mirror or we get in our head and we exercise and try to flex that high regard for our well-being and happiness. But then when we get around other people, do we see that in them, in the way that they treat us, in the way that they reflect back the things that we give them? Do they reflect back that healthy and positive regard for our well-being and happiness? And what happens is, if they reflect it back to us, it's easy for us to reflect it back to them. A high regard for their well-being and their happiness. And one of the things that people forget when it comes to social relationships is they think you always got to say yes to your friend. They think you always got to have your friend's back. They think you always got to act like your friend is right. But that is not a regard and caring for their well-being. Letting know when somebody's wrong, letting know when somebody's wild, letting know when somebody's doing too much, letting know when somebody's about to take the wrong turn and head down the wrong path. That is a concern for their well-being. Having a concern for somebody's well-being is one of the best ways to cultivate and nurture positive, healthy social connections and social relationships. It's about doing things that you love with other people. It's about having those people around to do those things that you love. It's about having those people around to pour out into them when you just feel like that cup is a little bit too full. And I'm not talking about the blessings cup. I'm talking about the bullshit cup. I'm talking about the cup that just fills up with all the bullshit and all the shit that just happens in life. And it overflows. You have to be able to pour that out somewhere. And it's those healthy social connections that we can pour it out to. But you got to remember that you got to have an empty cup to be able, and then you have to use that empty cup to let these people pour back into you. If you're not doing that, you are not doing your part. And if somebody else is not doing that, then they are not doing their part. People have a part to play because love is more than a feeling. Love is a deep and profound connection. It is a deep and profound connection. It is more than a feeling. It is action, even when it comes to healthy social relationships. All right? So boom, let's move on to the next thing. We're going to talk about love and relationships. We're going to talk about why it's important to have those love and those positive relationships. When it comes to love and relationships, love is more than a feeling. It is a deep affection. It is a deep affection. When it comes to romantic love, it is more than just a concern for well-being and happiness. It is that, but it is also deeper. Love is a deep and profound bond that connects us on a soul level. The romantic love shared between partners enriches our lives in countless ways. It's clear that love is also an essential ingredient for a fulfilling life. We know how important love is. We know how important love is to our lives. That is why we crave it. Even those people who have been fucked over and say, you know what, fuck love, I ain't doing that shit no more. I'm not doing relationships no more. I'm not doing trust no more. I'm not doing none of this no more. You can feel that void in yourself because you're not allowing yourself to feel those things anymore. And I'm not blaming you for that. I understand people do shit. I've been done wrong plenty of times. But love is important. Love is something that we need to have in our lives. And one of the things that Napoleon Hill says in Think and Grow Rich is that we cannot be angry about the fact that we don't have love no more. We should be grateful for the fact that we were able to experience it, even if it's gone now. So how we talk about building healthy relationships: communication, trust, empathy, respect. Those four things are building blocks of healthy relationships. When we talk about communication, we talk about from the early stages to the middle stages to the late stages of relationship. Communication is about letting someone know who you are. But communication is also about listening and understanding when they are telling you who you are. It is about being honest. It is about telling someone what you expect. It is about telling someone what your boundaries are going to be. Communication, verbal and nonverbal, is one of the main building blocks of a relationship, is how we get to healthy relationships. Trust. A lot of us got baggage. A lot of us get triggered by certain actions and certain things. A lot of us have been through relationship after relationship after relationship where the other person was just on some fuck shit. Point blank, period. So when we talk about trust, even me, I was like, what the fuck you mean, trust? How am I supposed to trust somebody? How can I ever trust somebody? The problem with that sentiment, the problem with that statement is that you're going into something without a cornerstone. You are trying to build a house without a corner of your foundation. And you wonder why the house keeps leaning this way and falling over. You wonder why the house keeps sinking into the mud, because you have an important aspect of that foundation that you are not willing to try and build because of the baggage you are trying to carry into this new home. Or you are trying to carry too much baggage into a home that has too small of a foundation, because you're letting somebody get just a tiny bit of trust. Like, I'm gonna trust you as far as I can throw you. But then you try and basically you able to build an apartment or a townhouse or some shit. But you're trying to bring a mansion's worth of baggage and fit it into that apartment. And wondering why shit keeps busting at the seams. Wondering why you keep saying, man, you know what? I knew I shouldn't have trusted him. I knew I shouldn't have trusted her. And then coming to find out the truth of the situation, being like, oh, my bad, babe. You know what? I shouldn't have tripped like that. I should have been more trusting, this, that, whatever the case. And blowing it. Self-sabotaging our own love and relationships. We have to give. And look, it's risky. It's risky. But everything that's worth it comes with risk, period. We have to give people, human beings, whether it's social connections, even ourselves, whether it's other people, we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. And not in a way that means we're just waiting on them to fuck up so we can say, you know what, I knew I shouldn't have trusted him. I knew I shouldn't have trusted her. Niggas ain't shit. Bitches ain't shit. All of this other bullshit, right? No. We don't have that tiny level of trust that is just waiting for them to violate it. We have to give ourselves and risk things with somebody that we have decided to go to that level with. We have to give them trust. And then also we have to get it in return. If you have been through the stage of communication with somebody long enough to the point where you feel like you know this person enough to think about pursuing something deeper with them, you have to trust them, or else that relationship will not be healthy. But then guess what? If they don't trust you, that relationship will damn near never succeed. It will damn near never be healthy unless you force it. Unless you're one of those people who said, you know what? I saw the red flags. This motherfucker was acting like they couldn't trust me. They were always wondering where I was at. They wanted my location from like date 2. They wanted all this other stuff. I saw the red flags, but I just kept going. I didn't want to leave. I liked them too much. Those are the only types of relationships that fake succeed without trust, because you force it. It's trying to force the square into the round hole. Third building block, empathy. You have to care about what that person's going through. You have to care about that person's feelings. You have to care. You have to give a shit. You have to not only give a shit, but you have to have understanding. You don't necessarily have to agree with everything they feel, but you have to be able to understand that, yes, they do have feelings. Yes, those feelings matter. Yes, those feelings are okay to have. And you have to be able to validate those feelings. What happens is we're running around with a whole generation of people and a whole group of people that's crazy as a motherfucker. And you know why? Because they've never had empathy. Their feelings have never been validated. Their feelings, they've never been told, like, it's okay for you to feel that way. I don't agree with you feeling that way, but I understand why you would feel that way. You're not just crazy for having feelings. So those feelings got to get bottled up. Those feelings got to try to throw by the wayside. And what happens is you can't do that. You're never able to work through those feelings because the other person was never willing to acknowledge that those feelings were there and acknowledge that those feelings were a real thing. So you had to bottle them up, or you had to throw them in the suitcase and let it be luggage for the next thing. So you could blow the fuck up. That's why people run around, they get crazy, because they're triggered by some shit. They're triggered by some shit that is the same shit that their ex used to do. And their ex never used to validate those feelings about it. So they're going into it assuming that you're not going to validate those feelings. And they explode or they act crazy because they're just trying to wrestle with themselves about why they even have these feelings in the first place. So that causes inner conflict. That inner conflict explodes into outer conflict. And now you're looking at them like, damn, you crazy as a motherfucker. But you need to have empathy. But just like they need to have empathy for you, especially when it comes to dynamics between men and women, we need to realize that men, we have feelings too. Men, we have opinions too. Men, we have views on things. We're going to feel certain ways about things. We're going to feel a way about the way that you talk to us. We're going to feel a way about stuff that goes on at work and the way our boss talks to us. We're going to feel certain ways about those things. And when we come into a relationship dynamic, when it's coming to empathy, you have to realize that this person is a whole jumble of feelings and stresses and emotions and experiences and things going on with them just walking around. You have to understand that they are going through something. You have to understand that, and you don't necessarily have to agree with how they feel, but you have to be able to put yourself in their shoes for just a second. Empathy. And talk about the last one, respect. And respect is difficult because I don't see respect when it comes to relationship dynamics. I don't see respect anymore. I don't see respect for women from men. I don't see respect for men from women. I don't see respect for other people from other people. I don't see it. It's so rare to actually see it. But then at the same time, a lot of us don't communicate our boundaries. We don't communicate our expectations well enough to say that someone has actually been disrespectful. When you go into something with assumptions, and that person doesn't live up to assumed expectations that aren't verbalized, you cannot say that those things were disrespect. And yeah, I've heard this before. You're a grown man. You should know this before. Not everybody wanted the same things that you did. Not everybody valued the same things that you did. That's something you wanted. That's something you should have told me. That is not respect. That is not an aspect of respect. That goes back to communication. Okay, I'll touch briefly again on communication. Boundaries, expectations, wants, needs, personal personality traits, individual stuff, that needs to be brought to the table. That needs to be put out in the open. No assumptions can be made about it, and it can't be taken personally when the person didn't know. But respect is when you do know. Respect is when you know how that man or how that woman feels about certain actions. Respect is when you know how that man or how that woman feels about certain things that happen. Respect is when you know that she trips out when you go out with that certain friend, that certain single friend. Respect is when you know that he don't like you texting your friend, your other friend late at night, talking about, oh, he's just a friend, but doing it anyway. Respect is the way that you talk to and deal with each other. Respect is treating each other like adults. I mean, we all know what respect is. It's not respect is about taking the person as they are, not trying to take the person as what you think they could become. Not trying to take that person as what you think you can mold them into. That's not respect. That is not love, and that's not respect. Respect is taking that person as they are, as you met them. And respect is going by keeping your word and allowing them to keep theirs. So now we talk about building healthy relationships. It's not just about what we do, though. It's about who we are. So that is how we tie it back into the context of our personal growth and development. Love is not just about what we do. It's just like I talked about being nice versus being kind. Love is not about what we do. It is about who we are as a person. It is not, is it about the things that we do habitually. It is about the behaviors that we exhibit habitually. It is about the things that we do on an automatic and regular basis. It's not trying to fit ourselves into a certain mode to impress somebody or try to fool somebody into or try to get somebody into a certain position in our lives and then going back to being the real person that we are. It's about becoming that person that we know the people we want and need. It is about knowing that there are things we need to be to satisfy and fulfill the other person. Because if we know that, and we realize that it's not about doing, it's about being, then we will actually start to look for and find people who are instead of doing. Because you can do something, you can be cool, you can be a gentleman, you can be this for 3 months. You can be a good woman. You can pretend to like sports. You can pretend to like everything he likes. You can pretend not to want to argue and fight for a couple months. But then after you feel like you got him, you go back to being that person. But then after you got her, you go back to being that person that doesn't like to go out, that doesn't like to take her out and show her off, that doesn't like to do things with her, that only wants to do what you want to do. And everything's become stale and boring because you were doing the right things, but you weren't being the right person. You were just wearing that mask, trying to get the person to come be with you. And it doesn't matter if that person was wearing a mask too. A lot of us say, well, she was doing it. No, man. Take off your own mask. Take off your own mask so that you can start to find people who already have their mask taken off. There's people out there, man. Just the loudest people do not represent everybody. There's people out there. So when we talk about individuals who have success in relationships, they have a secure attachment style. It's characterized by trust, openness, and emotional security. So when we talk about emotional security, we talked about trust, we talked about openness with the building blocks of it, but now we need to talk about emotional security. Because when we talk about navigating relationships, when we talk about navigating challenges, navigating feelings in our relationship dynamics, one of the things that we have to realize is that our feelings are going to change. Our feelings are going to change. They're going to go either up and down. They're going to remain like this for a while and then kind of dip down or kind of dip up at certain points in times. Your feelings are not going to be in change. While feelings are an integral part of the human experience, they can be fickle. They can be inconsistent. They fluctuate in response to external circumstances and internal dynamics. So emotional security is cultivating self-awareness and emotional intelligence. It's realizing that just because you feel bored, just because you feel like something is not going right, doesn't mean necessarily that everything is not going right. You have to navigate the nuances of your feelings with grace and with wisdom so that you can follow your hearts while still remaining grounded in reality. These are talking about the people that leave the good girl because she's boring. The people that leave the good dude because they're boring, or they don't validate their feelings, or whatever the case, or they're not exciting no more because they're following their feelings only. And then we talk about boundaries. Healthy boundaries create the framework for our healthy relationships. They ensure that our relationships are balanced and reciprocal. Because self-love is what brings the boundaries into fruition. Because when you have that regard for yourself, when you have that regard for your well-being, and you have that regard for your happiness, you can have a regard for somebody else's happiness and well-being, while at the same time being able to acknowledge the fact and realize the fact that they do not have that same regard for your well-being and your happiness. They do not have the same desire to do anything to contribute to that. They are not the type of person who will do or can do anything to contribute to that or anything to make that better. And you will be able to keep them at a certain level instead of allowing them in your life, allowing them in your heart to eat away at your soul like a rot, because you'll be with somebody who is like, man, they don't do nothing that I need. Man, they don't listen to me. They don't care about how I feel about nothing. They're disrespectful. They're this, that, because you didn't set the boundaries around your time, your energy, and your emotional well-being. When you set those boundaries around those things, you create the space for authentic connections to flourish, free from the constraints of one-sided dynamics or unhealthy dependencies. All right? So look, as we come to the end, we're talking about love and relationships within the context of our personal growth and development. We talked about self-love. We talked about healthy connections with other people, because our connections with others are not just incidental. They're essential to our growth and our well-being. By prioritizing the healthy social relationships, we create space for deep and fulfilling connections that enrich our lives and nurture our souls. When we talk about love, we talk about fulfilling a need within ourselves and realizing that we can also, at the same point in time, fulfill that same need in other people. Having enough self-love to realize that if that other person is not fulfilling that need within us, that we should not let them within those boundaries. But at the same time, being able to take our feelings out of the equation and realize that they are fulfilling the needs in the way that they are equipped to fulfill those needs, and keeping ourselves grounded in reality when it comes to relationships. So thank you guys once again for watching. Man, this video was difficult for me. I'm gonna tell you guys why. If you made it this far in the video, man, we're gonna get more personal right now. So this video is difficult for me just because up until very recently, I didn't have any of these things. I didn't have self-love. I didn't have healthy social relationships, healthy social connections. And I definitely didn't have any positive love and romantic relationships. And what I've found is that I was allowing everybody into my life. I was out allowing everyone to have an influence on my life. And I was allowing everyone to use me to pour their bullshit into my cup. And I was never being allowed to do the same with anybody else. That includes the people I was romantic with. That includes the people that I was just friends with. That includes the people I was associating with, for the most part. And what happened was, when I found self-love, when I found the positive things to think and say about myself, when I found my bigger yes to help me say no, when I was able to realize, like, there are people that are going to supremely benefit from me fulfilling my dreams and my goals. There are people who benefit just from me doing these little dumbass videos right here. When I realized that the people who are going to benefit from me doing that, when I realized that there were people who are going to suffer from me not doing it, it helped me to start establishing boundaries. And one of the things that happens when you start setting boundaries like that, especially in the world we live in, the day and age we live in, the people that are around right now, finding romantic relationships, dating, and love, when you got boundaries, is hard as shit. And that's why this video is very hard for me, because I haven't had a lot of positive experiences. I mean, I've had positive experiences, and I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had with people. I'm grateful for the people who awakened my passion. I'm grateful for the people who have made me feel love and made me feel, those butterflies in your stomach, just made you feel like you want to smile every time there. And I don't focus on the fact that every single one of them fucked me over and did me wrong. I focus on the fact that I know what love is. I know what love feels like. I know what love does for me. So I know what feeling to look for. The problem is that now that I have those boundaries, it's harder for me to see it in everybody like I used to. Because, like, I remember when, I was so insecure, and I remember when my self-love was just at zero, right? That I had lacked so much intimacy in my life that I thought that when people were being friendly with me and shit, that they liked me, Like, I was one of those people who, like, oh, she being hella nice and all this other shit. And motherfuckers be like, bro, this waitress, she trying to get a tip. You know what I'm saying? I was one of those people. And then I got to the point where it was the complete opposite. Where it was like, man, don't nobody want to fuck with me. Because I had been hurt so many times. And don't nobody want to fuck with me. Don't nobody find me desirable. Don't none of this other shit, right? And that's something I still struggle with a little bit today. Because I guess I'm like super unapproachable. So, I don't have a lot of interactions with a lot of people like that on that level. And then the people that I do have interactions with on that level, they come up against those boundaries and crash. Almost like every single one of them. They come up against those boundaries. They come up against those standards. They come up against the bigger yes that's burning inside of me, that wants to achieve and has goals and has dreams now and cares about my own well-being and has a high regard for my own happiness. They come up against that and they measure up so short that it's just like running into a wall. I mean, if it was limbo, then they'd be good. They'd be great because they would definitely go under that bar like a motherfucker. And that's why this video was really hard for me, man. But, if you were able to watch it and it helped you at all, and, you stuck around this far into the video, I really appreciate it. Make sure to like it. Make sure to share it. Make sure to share your thoughts with me. Let me know what you think. And come back next week, man. Come back next week for the free hour ABCs. Come back next week for 5 years from now. Come back for Parolee Paradise. Come back for some more workout videos, some burpee videos and stuff. We get into it, man. Come back for more because, man, things are just going. And it's just going to be so much more coming. It's going to be more coming about the rising scholars. It's going to be more coming about stuff going on at the school. There's going to be more going on. And all those things happen as a result of my self-love. And then also I'm grateful for the fact that I got that. And I'm grateful for the fact that I haven't let those people who have tried, who didn't measure up, into my stuff, because if I had let them in, I know that a lot of this stuff would have been thrown to the wayside. Trying to deal with one-sided relationships, trying to please people that have no interest in doing for me either. So, but yeah, man, thanks for watching. Free Hour ABCs. ABC's a tree. This has been L for love. Deuces.